I'm your broadcast engineer. I usually don't mute myself for the whole opening spiel. I don't think I've ever done that, so Jonathan gets to catch me the one day I'm slacking. Jonathan is a truly fantastic senior engineer who really knows his stuff. Seriously, he's really great. We've had him on before, and we've got a really cool topic today, which is going to be importing, extracting, and exporting a folder of files in FileMaker. We have webhooks in FileMaker at the MBS plugin on Monday, and then next week he's going to be finishing up his report series, and we're going to be doing the manipulating dates and times and an open Q&A with Jacob Taylor. Jonathan, what are we doing today?
All right. Well, let me start off. Let me try to share my screen.
Yep.
Let's see if I can do that. And just let me know when that is coming through, okay?
Yep, it's coming through. I've got your video in the left-hand corner, so.
Okay. Yeah, I'll stop doing that, and so we can just focus on the screen here. And so let me introduce what we're doing. Basically, people might be already aware that you can come over here in a FileMaker database and go import records from file. Okay, that should be a beginner to slightly intermediate thing, where say you want to import records from an Excel spreadsheet or another FileMaker database or something. A little bit more intermediate is this idea of importing records from a folder, which gives you this dialog right here. Okay, and it allows you to import, say, picture and movie files. So if you have a big folder full of pictures that you want to bring over into FileMaker into container fields and have them split out one picture per record, then it allows you to do that. Or you can import from a folder full of text files, and then it'll do the same type of thing. It'll bring over those text files and put them into an actual text field, not a container field, right? So you can do one or the other. You cannot do both, and you can't do other types of files, right? So it's only text or picture and movies. If you try to import text file, if you choose this option and then try to import, say, rich text format, okay, it'll give you a little warning and it'll try to bring them over, and then it'll look like gobbledygook, all over your new records because it can't read them properly. All right. And so that's a problem if you're trying to bring over a bunch of records, or actually a bunch of files, and they're all sorts of different files. Okay, so I have a folder full of test files here, and I'll show you what I have. So I have an assortment. I have a JPEG, PDF, Excel spreadsheet, an RTF file, text files, and a Word document file, docx. Okay, and so let's say I want to bring over all of these records into FileMaker. Right now, there's no easy way of doing it. And what you can do, of course, is you can do it manually, and I can come here and create new record, right, and then start manually dragging and dropping all of these PDFs one by one by one. And that's okay if you have like 2 or 3 files. But something I was working on recently, I had to import 67,000 files into FileMaker, and not only that, but also extract all of the text out of those files and put them into a text field. Some of those files were XML, RTF, text, and Word. They're all an assortment of different things, and that is, all the ingredients for a great migraine if you want to try to do that. I can't imagine how long that would take to do something like that. So anyways, there are plugins, of course, that can speed this type of thing up. We'll go to an example of how you can do something with the Monkey Bread plugin. But I want to show you a couple built-in ways first of importing a bunch of files into your FileMaker database, and then some built-in features that you might not be aware of, importing but also exporting records. Okay, so let me just do a quick demonstration here, and you can see how many we have. 14 items. Okay, so here's what we'll do. I'll hit import. We will we'll specify that we want this test files, and then we have all 14. Okay, so it imported all of the files here. Here's my container field, and it automatically calculates the size and the type and so forth. Okay, so I'm going to loop through, not loop through, but I will go through and demonstrate how exactly this import button works, what I did to make that happen, the ins and outs of it, and then I'm going to talk about how to extract text from the file. This is not done with any type of plugin. I'll just hit it right now, and you can see. So it brought over that text from that document, and that's a built-in feature in FileMaker. Or with other types of documents, like not text, right? Say a docx file, you can do something like that with a plugin, okay? And that's with the MBS plugin. And then with other things like an HTML file or something like that, you might want to save that file from the text field itself, and that might be confusing. I'll explain what exactly I mean by that in a little bit. Okay, so that's where we're headed. I'm going to start by explaining how to do the import process, and we will go from there. Margaret, am I still coming through okay? Everything good?
Yep, you are doing just fine.
Okay, great. So here's what we'll do first. I'm going to go to File, Manage Database. Okay, and I'm working on 2 separate screens, so that's why I'm switching over every now and then. Okay, so first I have 2 tables. One is Preferences, and all that is doing is storing the free plugin from Base Elements. I will go into what we're doing with that. And then over here, this is my Import Documents table. And what I have there, if you can see in the background, this little guy here is the actual container field. Okay, container to store a file. And then we have the file name right here. That file name field is an auto enter calculation. Let me double click and show you what that is. This file will be available for you in the show notes afterwards. And so anytime that a file is imported here, this auto enter calculation, what it does is it grabs the file name automatically. So that field is not blank. So any file that I put in to a new record, it uses this built-in FileMaker function called getContainerAttribute, and it looks at the container, and then it gets the attribute named file name, right, and grabs that for us. So in this case, it would put in the file name right there, okay? And then let's go to the next one here, file size. This one is the only custom function that is in the whole demo file, and it's called file size rounded. What that does is it grabs the file size from the container and then puts it into like a human readable form, something like 1 megabyte, 2 megabytes, 3 kilobytes, that type of thing, instead of giving it to you in bits. And then the file type is another auto enter calculation. What that gives us here is, first off, this function called upper gives it to us in uppercase, and it gives us the right words of the file name. 1. Okay, so whatever extension, like it looks for this little period, okay, and if it's .txt or .doc or whatever is after that dot, it grabs that word after the dot and then makes it all uppercase. Okay, and then let's see, all this other stuff down here, is who created it, when, who modified it, and when. Sometimes you'll notice that fields have this ZZ underscore, or maybe there's an underscore for the primary key, right? The only reason that that's there is to sort alphabetically. Okay, so something prefixed with a ZZ underscore is going to be at the bottom of the list. All this type of stuff is basically metadata, and I could care less about it for our purposes, but it's nice to have. But I just want it at the bottom of the list. The stuff that I want at the top of the list that needs to grab my attention are the important stuff like a primary key and so forth. So that's just FYI. All right, so let me do it again, and I'll show this to you in action. So import, and I'm going to select our test files here. Okay, and then you can see the file name that it brought in, right? This is a human readable version of the size, and then the type, PDF, JPEG, etc. Okay, so that's the idea. Let me go ahead and delete all these records and go through the actual script with you. Okay, so script workspace. Keep having to switch over from my other screens. Okay, so import documents. This is the one that we want. Okay, so this import document script is tied to this button here, import. Okay, and here's what we do first is let me just do this first. I'm going to script debug it and go through it with you step by step. I think that'll be easier. Okay, so here's what we do. The first two script steps here are allow user abort off and set error capture on. We're checking to see if there's errors, and we don't want the user here to get a dialog that says, "Hey, there's a problem. Do you want to continue, etc." We don't want to give them that option. Okay, so those are two standard script steps I usually put on most of my scripts. Okay, so it refreshes the window, and here's what we're doing with this base elements plugin. Base elements is a plugin that is free, and so I have included it in the file itself. And so on startup, when this file first opens, it's going to check to see if base elements is installed. If it is not, it'll install it for you. Okay, but this script step here is checking to make sure that it's installed before we try using it. If it's not installed, then it's going to give us an error and say, "Hey, you have to install this plugin," and then it'll halt the script. Okay, I do have it installed, and so here we go. What this is doing, this base elements plugin, the first one is it's prompting us, and it says Excel files here, but it's not exactly Excel files. What this is doing is it's prompting us for a dialog. Okay, so it pulls up a dialog and it says basically choose the folder that you want to import, and that's why I want to use that there. Okay, so once we do choose the folder we want imported, this is my data viewer, you can see that it stored the path variable here, right here, right? So this is my test files folder path. Okay, then this if statement says it's making sure that this path is not empty, that I actually did choose something there. Okay, this one here then grabs a list of everything in that folder. Okay, so it's going to this path and it's checking and it's seeing, file list folder, and then this is what it gets in that files variable. I'll bring this over here. It gets all of these files, and you notice here that sometimes there's these hidden files that you didn't know were there, but base elements will pick those up too, and we'll check for those, and we won't import the ds_store and so forth. But as you can see, we just got all of the files in a return delimited list here. Okay, and then the next thing that we're going to do after we've gotten our path to the files. Now we've gotten a list of the files. Now we want to bring those files over into the database. Okay, so it first checks and makes sure that there's actually something in the folder itself. Otherwise, it's not going to attempt to import it all. So if it's not empty, this list of files, then this total variable, it's going to get a total of this list. Now we know that there are 15 files in this variable here, right? So it counted them 1 through 15 and gave us that total. Okay, now here what I'm doing is I am pulling up a hidden window, and I'm doing the this process in a hidden window. You don't have to do this, but it comes in handy sometimes, and sometimes it makes things faster. So what I did with hidden windows is I named them dev, and then I put the position is minus 5,000 top and minus 5,000 left. So it's way off the screen somewhere. You can't see it. Okay. So it does the hidden window, and of course you can't see it. And then what we're doing now, you see this loop everywhere from here to here. For every single file in this list, we're doing all of this stuff. Okay, steps 28 through 41 until we're done with the list. Okay, so when exit loop, if the iteration, right, the number in the list that we're on is greater or equal to the total 15. Okay, so if we're at 15 or even more than 15, then it needs to exit the loop. Right? So here we go. First of all, what it's going to do, again, we're using this base elements plugin, and we're going to give you a dialog. So it says importing 15 files. I find this really useful, especially if you are importing, say, hundreds or thousands of files. You want to know where you're at in the process. Base elements also allows you to put a cancel button here and activate it to allow someone who's importing, say, 10,000 files, if they want to stop the process for some reason, like they chose the wrong folder or something, and you don't want to wait, a good 10 minutes or something to import all these things, you could hit cancel. It's another helpful thing here. I did not put that in, but that's something you can do. Anyways, so we start looping through. First, this iteration, this is a method that I use when I do loops. So I set a variable called iteration, and some people use the variable I that sometimes stands for iteration. Okay, and you can see that the iteration is equal to 1, which means that this is the first time we're going through the loop. Okay, and then what it does is it sets the full path here. So what it's trying to do, it gets the path that we chose, right, to our folder, and then it combines it with the first file on the list. Okay, so the first file on the list is called .ds_store, and so what this variable is doing is it's getting us the path and the name of the file. So now we have a full path here. This is the exact place that the first file is in that folder. Okay, and then what we do is this thing here. Yes, this is the full path, but what we need to do is we need to convert it to an actual FileMaker path. If you tried to import that file with that full path, okay, it wouldn't have worked. When we do a convert to FileMaker path, it does work, and it looks like this, right? It says file : / etc. all the way. Okay, it'll do the same thing for a Windows platform too. Okay, and then yeah, so it'll check here to see if you're on a Windows platform or a Mac platform, and it will manipulate the path accordingly to give you what you need to import the file. Okay, so here's the full path, and now what's the next one? Now here's what it's going to do. I've done a little check, okay, and I've checked to see if the file itself ends with .ds or .dsstore. Then I don't want to import that file. I don't want any weird little hidden files coming over. Okay, so if it ends with .dsstore, I don't want to do anything. Okay, and you see that otherwise, if it doesn't end with these, then I want to add a new record and insert the file there. Okay, so it will on the next one, but it just skipped over this one. So this is something to keep in mind. Say if you want to import a list of files, but say you don't want to import the Microsoft Word files, for instance, you'd put a little trap in here, and you would say if write of file extension, or if write of full path, okay, 4 equals .doc, or write of full path 5 equals .docx, then do nothing. Okay, so that allows you to skip over certain files that you have in your folder. All right. So next, now this is our exit loop. So we're going through all of the files, right? And we're saying this is number 1. You can see iteration is 1. The next one will be 2. Okay, all the way until we hit 15. When it hits 15, okay, and iteration is 15, and the total is 15, then it will exit the loop. Okay. Now, right here, we are upping the value of this custom dialog, okay, by 1. See what happens here. And you see that this custom dialog kind of went in a progress. Okay, so it's going to go more and more and more to the right as we keep going. I'm only going to do a couple more of these just to give you the idea, right? So we upped the iteration by 1. Now we're at 2. And then the full path here is now, you can see it changed from this .dsstore to this PDF, because that is the second one on the list. Okay, so we're getting number 2 here. Okay, it converts the path properly, like I explained, and now it's going to check is the write of this file, is it .ds or .dsstore? It is not. So it should pass over this and then create a new record for us. Okay, so it goes else, and you can see what's happening in the background now. Now watch this. New record. Okay, now we have 1 record in the background, and then it's going to insert the file from where? From our full path that we have right here. Okay, so we insert, and you can see it did exactly that. It inserted the PDF from where we told it, and the auto enter calculations gave us the name, the size, and the type. Okay, and then we keep going until you can see the custom dialog just progressed again until this iteration is 15. Okay, so it keeps going, and it keeps going until it's all the way done. Okay, I'm going to come here, and I'm just going to skip all the way down to when it's done. Okay, so in that time there, it imported all 15 files. Okay, now it is going to, well, it didn't import all 15, it imported 14 because it skipped over the first one, right? Okay, now it's going to go through, and it's going to do a little bit of cleanup. Sometimes you'll get these weird files that have this tilde sign or a dollar sign on it, and sometimes that happens particularly with Windows computers, and we don't want any of those. Okay, so it loops through and it deletes them if it finds them, and it's not going to find any on this. So I'm just going to click here and let it run until that stopping point. Okay, And now here we want to get rid of that custom dialog. We don't want to see it anymore. Okay. And so what we do is we tell it to display the total plus one, which will make it go away. Boom, it's gone. Okay. We have the total there, and I don't know why I did that. We can get rid of that. Now this close window is going to close the developer window in the background. Our hidden window closes, then it selects our window, and if it ran into errors, it'll tell you, hey, there's no files that were in your folder, or if it gives a different error, it'll tell you. Okay, and then we're done. So that's how that whole import process works. The idea is that you choose a folder that you want to import from. It'll loop through and import the ones that you tell it to, and then give you this custom dialog that shows you the progress as you go through. As you can see, we imported 14 records really quickly, but what's really nice is importing a huge amount of files, like thousands and thousands of them, and it goes by very, very quickly. So this is okay in a little bit of a time-saving thing if you're importing 14, but when you're importing hundreds and thousands, this is a real lifesaver, and it saves you hours and even days of dragging and dropping files into your FileMaker database. This is something that you can do without a plugin, but what I just showed you is something that's helpful with a custom dialog progress, right? That shows you where you're at in the process, and just speeds things along. And plus, that plugin there is free. Okay, so that's the import process. And before I go on to these next couple things, I'm going to stop there, press pause, and take a breath real quick, and see if we have any questions.
Does the user's OS setting of show hidden files affect whether FM can see them when generating the list of files?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure. But you can see though that the setting on my computer, okay, I'm not showing hidden files. Like if I click in to this test files folder, you can see there is no .dsstore file that's being viewed here. So what this is doing is it's getting hidden files, whether they're set to show or not. I hope that answers that question. So if there are hidden files, you just want to trap for those when you're bringing them in.
Okay, cool. Let me know if that answers your question, Stu. Let's do Peter. Why the separation of the two loops? Can the check not happen in the first loop, just as the DS files?
Yep, yeah, it could. And that's probably something that should be changed to make for a more concise script, and that's a good catch. But yeah, there's no added reason for that other than I didn't think about that at the time.
And then next question, where is the file extension coming from? Variable file extension. It's the $ file extension coming from. Sorry, missed that one if it defines it earlier.
Yeah, so there are certain, let me see if I included any of them here. Man, I wish I did, but I didn't. If you do have a file that does not have a file extension, okay, it does not mean that it's not going to work. Okay, so let's say I have something here, like here's my screenshot. Okay, am I able to change this? Yeah. Okay, here's a screenshot, and I'm going to take away the file extension. It doesn't need to have .jpeg in order to work. So I am going to delete all records and show this to you again in fast motion. Okay, and open. Okay, you can see that the screenshot is still it still brought it over, because FileMaker knows that even though the .jpg is not there, it still knows that it's a JPEG file because it's looking at the actual file itself and grabbing the, I don't know, for lack of a better word, the inner component, okay, and then grabbing that. So it doesn't need to have the extension explicitly said in the name of the file. And you can dig through the script to see how that's working. But I think that answers that question.
Cool. And then we kind of have a comment from David. For Windows, you could run dr/b into dr's text. You could grab the text file and manipulate over a variable. I don't know how on Mac.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then
And that may go into something we're going to discuss next. I think that
okay,
has more to
got it.
do with extracting stuff out rather
Okay.
than importing, if I'm understanding that right.
I think so. And then I'm
maybe,
going to grab a question from YouTube then. So if that's
okay.
okay with you. You could have filtered the $ file in the same time as the .ds store or the docs file.
That's correct. Yeah, that's the same as that first question. That's a good catch. So, okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and go to the next couple buttons here with the time we have left. So the first one is to extract a text file. And so I'm just going to do this one here. I downloaded some sample text documents here. If I hit this button, extract text file, what that just did is it looked at the container file, it knew it was a text document, and then it read the file contents. Okay, and this is a built-in FileMaker function. I'm going to debug this here, and let's see. Here we go. Okay. Oh, what? Shouldn't have done that. Here we go. Extract. Yeah. Okay. Great. So here's what I'm doing here. If it is a text document, okay, so this check, what it's doing is it's saying if the file type, right, of this file, if the file type is txt, then it will go ahead and do what it's doing. If it does not equal txt, then it gives you an alert and it says, are you sure you want to proceed anyways? And if you say yes, then it will try to extract the text. I'll show you what that does if it's not a text document and show you how bad that looks, okay? But this is a text document, so it skips over that stuff. And then here is the neat thing, okay? So you might not have been aware, but FileMaker comes with this function called text decode. And what you can do with it is you specify the container that you're looking at. Okay, in our case, it's this one up here. And then it says, I want to decode this container, and I am specifying the text encoding type. Right now, we're assuming that it's UTF-8, and we don't necessarily know that it is, but we're just decoding as if it were. This is just a quick demonstration, okay? So, in fact, this one is UTF-8. So what it's doing is it's setting this contents field, okay, with the decoded text of the container. So there it is, and you can see there's our contents, and then it commits the record, right? So that's a built-in way of doing it with FileMaker. Here's what happens though if you try to do that with, say, a different type of document like a docx. When I try to decode this container as if it were a UTF-8 plain text file, here's what it looks like. It's going to give me a warning. It'll say, do you really want to do this? I say yes, and it gives me all these crazy kung fu characters because it is not a UTF-8 file. Okay, so you have to do something else with it, and that's where this Monkey Bread plugin comes in. With this Monkey Bread plugin, I'll show you just a couple quick demos, and Christian Schmidt can go into more details. And it's one plugin you really want to get, especially if you're doing file manipulation. And what I did here, I did a check to see if Monkey Bread is actually installed. Okay. If it's not, then it stops you dead in your tracks. It says, hey, this is required, and it halts. Okay. And it does just a couple of checks. You can do a whole lot more with this plugin, but this is just some examples. It checks to see if it's a doc or docx file, and it does. It extracts it if it is, or if it's an HTML file, it'll extract it. Or if it's an RTF, that's rich text format, then it'll extract it. But it uses different code for each one. Okay, so in this case, it knows that it's a docx file. You can see docx, and because it is, this is just standard code that I pulled from Monkey Bread. And what's it doing? It sets the field with the contents, and then releases that, and that's it. And I won't go too much into how this all works. That's a full Monkey Bread plugin type of demo that you need to watch. I'm sure we've done videos on that. Christian Schmidt has as well. Okay, so that's with HTML formats, Word documents, and rich text format. You can do a lot more with it too, but there's just some examples. Okay, so that is that. Same thing with this RTF, right? So if I extract with plugin, you can see how this is coming over, right? It's not just plain text. It has all different types of formatting applied to it. If I try to extract the contents, right, with just the built-in FileMaker function, again, I'll get this warning, and then this is what rich text format looks like. Okay, it's not readable at all. Okay, so you don't want to do that. You want some other way of getting the contents. All right. Let me stop there again, Margaret, before I go on to the final thing. And so if we can take questions about extracting text with files, if we have any questions on that.
People are typing. I'm going to let them finish typing first before
Sure.
calling it good.
Okay.
Can you extract a PDF?
And that is with Monkey Bread as well. You cannot, as far as I know, extract contents of a PDF with some of these built-in FileMaker functions. There is no like PDF encoding decode. So if I just try to decode this PDF as though it's plain text, you get something crazy. Yeah, you get all this nonsense, right? So I don't think you can do that without some sort of hat trick, right? You could export, and you could do some sort of Apple script, you could do some sort of Bash script, but nothing inside FileMaker can get you the contents of a PDF in text form. And that's why these plugins are created, whether Monkey Bread, and then there's the 360works Scribe plugin would do the same type of thing to an extent.
I don't see anything typing, so I think we're probably good to keep going.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, I will get rid of all that stuff. Okay, so now here's the neat one that you might not be aware of. Okay, and this is save contents as file. I want to show you an example here. Let's say I create a new record. Okay, so I got a new record here, and I have a very simple HTML page that I'm going to show you. Okay, so here it is on this w3schools.com thing. Okay, and it's just this coming soon page. So it has a placeholder for a logo, and in the background there's a picture that's pulling from W3 Schools. Okay, so it's that HTML there, and let's say I take this HTML, okay, and I just put it into the contents, right? So I have HTML code in FileMaker. What you can do, and it's pretty neat, is you can actually save this this chunk of text as an HTML file. Okay, so for instance, I can type in something like coming soon, and then say it's HTML. Here's what I can do. I'll debug this with you here. Save contents as file. Okay, so what I'm doing first is I'm doing, again, this built-in function called base64 encode. And I'm encoding the contents, whatever is in here. It doesn't matter if it's HTML, XML, CSS, whatever. We're just encoding it. Okay? So we're encoding it as a variable. I'm calling that variable base64. I'll show you what that looks like here. Let's see. Okay, base64. Okay, and now what that variable looks like is this. So this variable that we're looking at is this contents here as base64. Okay, why that's important you'll see in a second. Okay, then we set a variable with the name and extension coming soon.html. Okay, and then what we're going to do here is we're setting the actual container. This set field here is going to create the actual file. And it does that by taking the base64 that we just created, base64, and it's decoding it as the name and the extension. Okay, so let me show you. Set field. Now we have right here a file, an HTML file, that is a legit HTML file, which we'll see in a second, created from a FileMaker text file. Okay, and it's not limited to just HTML. You can do this with any type of file that I'll show you in a second. Okay, so we created our file. Now what we're going to do is we're going to export it. Okay, so we're setting a variable with the path, and you can do whatever path you want, but I'm just setting it to the desktop. Export. So it just exported that file to my desktop. It tells you if you have an error or not, and then it gives you a success message if you don't have an error. Okay, and then it's done. So here is what that file looks like. Second, this is what we just exported, and I'm going to open that up in Safari here. And you can see that we just exported that HTML file, and it looks exactly how we wanted it to look, right? Exactly like this. But we generated it from FileMaker and from text inside FileMaker. Now, why this is important, okay? I just demonstrated to you a really cool feature, but you might not understand why this is so cool here. Let me just show you an example, and this is from a product I created a couple of years ago, this web portal wizard project. What this does, we have 101 files that this web portal wizard generates. Okay, some of them are PHP files, some of them are HTML, some of them are CSS, and whatever. You can see that there's all sorts of different files. And what this does is when you're in this program and you hit export web portal app, what FileMaker does is it goes through all 101 of these files and actually creates them and then exports them where you need them exported. So for instance, if I click on this button, let me just show you what this does. Okay, so in that split second there, it exported the entire website for me. And I'll show you here into a folder that I told it to. And you have all of the actual files you need to run your website, whether it's PHP files, CSS. Here you have JSON and whatever. And all of those all of those files were records within FileMaker. So they were sitting here as text in a field somewhere, and I was replacing certain pieces as needed, and then exporting them in a file structure, and doing all of that without any sort of plugin at all. All it is a matter of doing text encode and text decode functions and doing export field documents. So again, let's just take a look at this. Save content, right? It's base 64 encode. And so I'm getting whatever is in this field. I'm encoding it as base 64. And then I'm setting the name and the extension. Okay, I'm creating that file in a container field, and then I'm exporting it. And it's as simple as that. So that might really come in handy in certain niche circumstances. Maybe when you're trying to, let's say, create some sort of custom HTML or chart or something, and you need it actually produced in a file. You don't need it shown in FileMaker, but you need FileMaker to kind of cook the document and then release it into the wild. That's how you can do that fairly easily from the contents of a field. So I've been talking for a while there. Let me stop and see if we have any questions on that end.
We do. I missed the
Okay.
reason you had to base 64 encode / decode. You can't do the same with just text?
No, not that I know of. No. If we come here and we do export field contents, I do not believe that you can just do HTML. Let me see. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think you can. Yeah, it says you cannot save this with HTML. All right, so it'll give you some sort of error warning if you try to save what it thinks is a text field as something other than text. So with the encode and decode, it allows you to get around that. You can save it as whatever you want. You just have to make sure that the contents of the field are what you're saving as. Okay, so if I try to save the contents here as like a PDF, and then I tried to export it, it's not going to work. It's just going to be like, this is not a PDF. I don't know why you're trying to save it as one. So you have to make sure that the contents you're saving it as is proper, but that's why you need that encode decode thing.
Weird, but good to know is his response.
Okay.
I'm gonna let Lynn finish typing.
Yep. Okay.
Could you rename it to text? HTML is a text file.
Yeah, it's a text file. You can rename it as text. What I'm trying to say is, look, up here, you can name it as whatever you want. Okay, so you can save it as an HTML file, and it'll actually render properly here as an HTML file. You can go to an HTML file and rename it as .txt, and of course it's not going to render as HTML. It'll look like this. Okay, so you can give it whatever extension that you want. I think I'm answering that properly. I understood the question.
Yes.
Okay.
That was the answer.
Okay. Okay.
I don't want the base elements plugin. I know the script will break without it. Will a demo file put the base elements plugin on my computer when it's opened, or only in the script where I can disable that from happening?
What you can do is, in the demo here, what I've done is in file options, on first startup, okay, I run a startup script that actually installs the plugin. So if you don't want that to happen, what you can do is, before you open up this file, you can come up here to Tools, Script Debugger, and then open up the file. I'll just do it here. Okay. So that'll be the first thing that comes up. It'll say it's trying to do the startup script. If you don't want that to happen, then you come here to stop and say, no, I don't want that to happen. Okay, and then you come here to file options, and then disable that startup script, uncheck it altogether. Okay, and so that will make it not automatically install in your computer, and then you can change the scripts as needed. It is possible to do this type of thing without base elements. It just really is handy. Is that all we got for the time being, Margaret?
I think so. I'm looking. People are typing. I'm gonna let them finish typing. We do
Sure.
have 4 minutes left. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, and you'll have this file as something that you can dig in and try to reverse engineer. You can obviously change it however you want. There's no copyright on this, just something that I thought might be a help to you.
Awesome. Me too, thanks. I don't want external files automatically saved if I don't know where they come from. And you can change your FMP settings / preferences to disallow files from installing plugins. So.
Okay.
And then thank you, Jonathan.
Right.
The conversion to HTML is something I will definitely use. No, thank you very much for coming. Seriously, appreciate this. I have shared the sample file. Thank you very much again, Jonathan. I greatly appreciate it. I'm going to run the ending credits now.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Have a good weekend.
Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir!